A lone figure stood at the edge of the grand cliff, gazing out over the vast, endless sea below. Prince Baku had always found solace here, away from the noise of the palace and the expectations of his royal birthright. But today, something was different. A darkness seemed to hang in the air, a whisper of trouble coming from the very depths of the kingdom. What he didn't know was that the greatest challenge of his life was already on its way. In the bustling village of Valantra, preparations were underway for the grand courtship competition that would determine Baku's future bride. The kingdom's royal court was filled with hopeful maidens, each more determined than the next to win the prince's heart. But amidst the sparkle and excitement, a shadow lurked, an accusation that would set everything into motion. When a child, accused of witchcraft and cast into the turbulent sea, was rescued by a mysterious figure, the fate of the prince was forever changed. What started as a competition to find true love would soon become a battle against deceit, lies, and betrayal. The truth of Valantra's royal bloodline would be uncovered, and the kingdom's greatest secret revealed. The woman they underestimated wasn't a mere village girl. She was the mermaid who had guarded the kingdom's balance for centuries. Disguised as one of the contestants, she would stand by the prince's side, helping him uncover the hidden threats that sought to destroy everything he held dear. But there was more at stake than just the future of the royal family. The curse that bound Baku's heart had been set in motion long ago, and only the purest of hearts could break it. Would the prince find the truth before it was too late? Or would the dark forces that conspired against him tear his world apart? Before we dive into this tale, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is one you won't want to miss. In the heart of Valantra, a tropical kingdom where the air was thick with the scent of palm trees and the rhythm of the waves crashing against the shore, Prince Baku paced nervously. He stood tall, his dark skin gleaming under the sun, his royal robe fluttering gently in the wind. But despite his regal appearance, his heart was heavy with a burden no prince should ever bear. A curse had fallen upon him, a curse that said he could only marry a woman with the purest heart, someone untouched by greed or malice. No matter how many women paraded before him, none could meet the standards of this mysterious curse. The kingdom's best healers and wise men had tried to lift it, but their efforts had been in vain. No matter how beautiful, noble, or kind-hearted the woman was, the curse held fast. It was said that the curse would only be broken by true love, but finding love amidst so much deceit and scheming seemed nearly impossible. So, with a heavy heart, Baku announced a grand courtship, hoping that perhaps one woman would stand out and prove herself worthy of his affection. Word spread quickly, and soon, women from villages near and far gathered to show off their beauty and grace, eager to win the prince's hand. But Baku was not fooled by appearances alone. He needed someone pure, someone who could love without hesitation or ambition. As the courtship began, the royal courtyard buzzed with excitement, and the women performed great feats of strength, skill, and charm, trying to catch the prince's eye. But none seemed to meet the requirements that Baku had set. His gaze moved from one woman to the next, his face serious, but his mind troubled. Among the many contestants, one stood out, not because of her beauty or her skills, but because of the dark cloud hanging over her. Her name was Nia, a child from the nearby village of Azura, a place known for its myths of powerful creatures who dwelled in the sea. Nia was unlike any other contestant. She was small, frail-looking, and not one for performing tricks or boasting of her talents. Yet, her presence in the court was enough to draw whispers from the crowd. "Why is she here?" the whispers went. "She is cursed," they say. "She is a witch, born with strange powers." Baku's eyes lingered on her for a moment. Something about the girl, despite her apparent frailty, stirred something deep inside him. He couldn't put his finger on it, but there was something pure about her, something mysterious that beckoned him closer. And then, as if answering his silent call, Nia spoke out loud, her voice clear and unwavering. "You must not trust them, Prince Baku," she said, her dark eyes looking straight into his. "Not all those who smile at you seek your good." The court fell silent. Everyone turned to her, confused and surprised by her sudden boldness. Before Baku could ask her what she meant, the guards rushed forward. "Witch," one shouted. "Witch, take her away." Without warning, they grabbed Nia and dragged her toward the sea. "No. Baku shouted, rushing to stop them, but it was too late. Nia was tossed into the waves, her small form disappearing beneath the surface. The prince stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He felt something deep within him stir, an unfamiliar sense of dread mixed with compassion. Was this girl truly a witch? Or had she simply been accused unjustly? Baku wanted answers, but before he could take another step, something magical and mysterious happened. The sea roared, and from the depths, a figure emerged, a beautiful mermaid with shimmering scales, flowing long hair, and eyes that seemed to glow with ancient knowledge. The mermaid dove gracefully toward Nia, pulling her from the depths of the ocean and cradling her in her arms. The crowd gasped, unsure of what they were seeing, but Baku could feel his heart racing. The mermaid's presence was otherworldly, like something straight out of a forgotten myth. She disappeared beneath the waves with Nia, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. Baku stood still, unsure of what to do. He had heard the legends of mermaids, mysterious beings who lived in the sea, both beautiful and dangerous. But could they truly save a child who had been wronged? As the days passed, Baku couldn't shake the image of Nia's terrified face as she was cast into the sea. He ordered his servants to search for her, but no one had seen her since that day. Several days later, when the sun hung low in the sky, Baku sat in the royal courtyard, deep in thought. He stared out at the sea, hoping to see some sign of Nia or the mermaid who had saved her. The cool evening breeze ruffled his hair, but he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, consumed by the mystery of the child and the mermaid. As if in answer to his silent wish, a figure appeared on the edge of the shore, a figure he recognized all too well. It was Nia. But something was different. She stood tall, her once frail body now glowing with an inner light, her eyes filled with wisdom far beyond her years. She was no longer the frightened child who had been thrown into the sea. Now, she was a woman of strength and grace, her presence commanding attention. And standing beside her was the mermaid. To Baku's surprise, the mermaid had taken the form of a simple village girl, her hair now tied up in a loose braid, her skin no longer shimmering with scales, but warm and human in appearance. Baku's heart skipped a beat as he stood, staring at them both. "Nia," he said softly, his voice betraying the confusion he felt. "What is this? What has happened to you?" Nia smiled, though it was a sad smile, as though she knew something Baku did not. "I was never a witch," she said, her voice steady. "I was only a child, born under the shadow of a curse. But I was saved, Prince Baku, by the one who gave me new life." She gestured to the mermaid, who now stood beside her, still beautiful but with an air of mystery that made Baku's heart race. The mermaid, now in her human form, looked at Baku, her gaze piercing but kind. "I am the one who saved Nia," she said softly. "And I have come to help you, Prince Baku. You have been cursed, but it is not the curse of a wicked heart. It is a curse of ignorance, a curse that blinds you to the truth of the world around you." Baku's confusion deepened. What was this woman talking about? The mermaid, now fully human but still holding on to an ethereal air, smiled gently. "You will find that not all is as it seems, Prince Baku. The women you have brought to court, they are not all as pure as they appear. Some are driven by greed, and others by jealousy. You must trust Nia, for she knows the truth that lies hidden beneath their smiles." Nia stepped forward, her eyes locked onto the prince's. "I want to help you, Prince Baku," she said quietly. "But you must trust me, for the path ahead is fraught with danger. There are those who will stop at nothing to keep you from seeing the truth." Baku's heart pounded in his chest. He had been searching for love, for a woman with a pure heart, but now he wondered if he had been looking in all the wrong places. As Nia spoke, Baku began to see the world around him differently. The court maids who had once seemed so perfect now seemed to have hidden agendas, and the grand performances meant to impress him now seemed like elaborate acts designed to deceive. But what could he do? How could he break the curse if he didn't know who to trust? And so, with the mermaid's help, he began a new journey, one that would take him far beyond the walls of his kingdom and deep into the heart of a mystery that had plagued him for so long. The curse, it seemed, was only the beginning. Prince Baku stood by the shore, staring out into the distance where the sea met the sky, a swirling horizon of mystery. The mermaid, now disguised as a simple village girl, stood beside him. Nia, who had once been a child accused of witchcraft, was no longer the frightened girl who had been thrown into the ocean, but a figure of quiet strength, her eyes filled with a deep, knowing wisdom that seemed to transcend time. Baku felt a pull in his heart, a strange mix of admiration and confusion. The mermaid's transformation into a village girl was both remarkable and perplexing. But it was not her appearance that held his attention, it was her words, and the hidden truth that she had hinted at. "You've been cursed, Prince Baku," the mermaid had said, her voice like a soft breeze, filled with a haunting melody. "But the curse is not what you think. It is not just a spell, not something you can break with a simple act of love. It's deeper than that. It's tied to the very nature of your heart, your perception of the world." Baku turned to her now, his eyes wide with questions. "What do you mean? I don't understand. How do I break this curse? And why has it taken so long for me to find the one who can love me?" The mermaid's gaze softened as she placed a hand on Baku's shoulder, her touch cool and reassuring. "The curse was placed upon you long before you were born, Prince. It was woven by forces older than time, bound by the greed and ambition of those who wish to control the throne. The curse is not simply about love, it is about seeing the world with clarity. You must learn to recognize the truth within those around you." Nia, who had been quietly listening, now spoke up, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "When I was cast into the sea, I did not die because I was saved, not just by the mermaid, but by the power of truth. I was never a witch. But the kingdom feared me because of my difference. The curse is not just yours, Prince Baku. It is the kingdom's curse. A curse of judgment, of false beliefs, and of people believing they know what is right and true, when in fact they do not." Baku listened intently, his mind racing to comprehend the weight of her words. He had always believed that the curse was simply a challenge he had to overcome, something that could be lifted by finding the purest heart. But now, it seemed much more complicated. The curse was not just about finding love. It was about understanding the truth and seeing the world for what it truly was. "What do you want me to do?" Baku asked, his voice filled with both determination and fear. Nia smiled, a gentle, reassuring smile that made him feel like everything might be okay. "We need to expose the lies, Prince Baku. We need to show the kingdom that they have been blinded by their own judgments, by their own desires. Only then can you break the curse, and only then can you find the true love that you seek." Baku was silent for a moment, thinking deeply. Could this really be true? Could the curse be a reflection of the kingdom's own flaws? He had never thought of it that way before. All his life, he had been taught that the curse was something that could be fixed by finding the right woman. But now, it seemed that the true solution lay not in a person, but in the truth itself. The mermaid, now fully human, continued. "The contest you held, Prince Baku, those women who came to win your heart, were never meant to be chosen based on their beauty or skills alone. They were meant to reveal the heart of the kingdom. Look closely, and you will see the truth in their actions, their intentions, and their desires." Baku nodded slowly. The grand contest, the performances, the tricks, all of it had seemed so superficial. But now, he realized that each moment had been a reflection of something deeper, a reflection of the kingdom's own fears and desires, and of the corruption that lay beneath the surface. "But how do I begin?" Baku asked, feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of what lay ahead. "How do I uncover the truth about these women? How do I expose the deceit that has been hidden for so long?" The mermaid's eyes glowed softly, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. "You must look beyond what is visible, Prince Baku. Trust your heart, and trust those who are willing to stand by you, even when the truth is hard to face." With those words, the mermaid turned to leave, but Baku stopped her. "Wait," he said urgently. "What happens now? Where do we go from here?" The mermaid looked at him one last time, her expression serene yet filled with purpose. "Now, we begin the journey of revealing the truth. But be warned, Prince Baku. There are those who will stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. You will face danger, betrayal, and deception. But you must be strong, and you must trust those who are truly loyal to you." Nia stepped forward, her small hand resting gently on Baku's arm. "I will help you, Prince Baku. I have seen the truth. I will stand by you, even when others try to tear us apart." With those words, Baku felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the curse had been placed upon him, he felt like he might finally have a chance to break free from its hold. But the road ahead was unclear, and danger lurked at every turn. As Baku and Nia set out to uncover the truth, the air around them seemed thick with tension. Word had spread quickly about the child who had been saved by the mermaid, and many of the courtiers whispered behind closed doors, unsure of what to make of the situation. Some believed that Baku had lost his mind, while others feared the power of the mermaid and the truth she seemed to hold. The courtmaids who had once appeared so perfect now seemed to be watching Baku with suspicion. He could feel their eyes on him, calculating, plotting, waiting for any opportunity to strike. But Baku was no longer the naive prince he had been before. He had learned that the world was not as it seemed, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Nia, ever watchful and perceptive, began to point out the small things that others overlooked, the way the courtiers smiled a little too brightly, the way certain gestures and words were carefully crafted to create a false impression. It was clear to Baku now that there was a web of deceit woven throughout the kingdom, and he was determined to uncover it. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Baku and Nia returned to the royal palace. They were met by a familiar face, one of the women who had participated in the contest. Her name was Mara, and she had seemed like a perfect candidate for Baku's bride. But now, Baku felt a strange unease when he saw her. Mara approached him with a smile, but there was something in her eyes that made Baku's stomach churn. He had trusted her once, but now, he wasn't sure if she could be trusted at all. "Prince Baku," she said sweetly, her voice like honey. "I have been thinking about you, and I wanted to speak with you privately." Baku nodded cautiously, motioning for her to follow him into a secluded garden. As they walked, Baku couldn't shake the feeling that Mara's intentions were far from innocent. There was something calculating about the way she moved, the way she spoke. It was as though she was trying to manipulate him, to get him to see her as the only one who could lift his curse. But Baku was no fool. He had learned to see beyond the surface, and he wasn't about to be fooled by Mara's charms. As they reached the garden, Mara turned to face him, her eyes locking onto his with a seductive intensity. "Prince Baku," she whispered, "I know you are searching for the truth. But you don't need to look any further. I am the one you seek. I am the one who can lift your curse." Baku's heart skipped a beat. Her words were like a spell, but he resisted the pull. He knew better now. He had learned that true love wasn't about magic or manipulation, it was about trust, loyalty, and understanding. "I don't trust you, Mara," he said firmly, his voice steady. "I don't trust any of you. The truth is not something you can just give me. I must find it for myself." Mara's smile faltered, and for a moment, Baku saw a flash of anger in her eyes. But it was quickly replaced with a cold, calculating look. "You will regret this, Prince Baku," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." And with that, Mara turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the stone path. Baku stood still, his heart pounding in his chest. He had made his decision. He would not be swayed by charm or deceit. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As he turned to leave, Nia appeared at his side, her presence a comforting reminder that he was not alone in this journey. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The night had fallen quietly over the kingdom of Valantra, a kingdom known for its peaceful tropical climate, the scent of flowers in the air, and the towering Scottish-style castles that stood proudly across the land. However, tonight, a deep sense of foreboding clung to the air like an unshakable fog. The once bright courtyard where the courtmaids had gathered earlier in the day was now dim, with shadows stretching long beneath the moonlight. Prince Baku paced slowly through the palace halls, his thoughts a storm of confusion and uncertainty. Mara's words, her promise to lift the curse, echoed in his mind. There had been something about her that he couldn't quite place, something unsettling, as though her smile hid a deeper, darker truth. He knew he had made the right choice by rejecting her, but the consequences of his decision weighed heavily on him. Beside him, Nia moved quietly, her eyes scanning their surroundings as though she were listening for something hidden in the night. The mermaid's transformation had not only gifted her the ability to walk on land but had also sharpened her senses, allowing her to perceive dangers that others could not see. As they walked together through the winding corridors, Baku couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The kingdom was not as safe as it seemed, and the curse was not just a personal affliction, it was a reflection of the secrets buried deep within the hearts of those around him. "You're quiet tonight, Prince," Nia said softly, her voice like the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. Baku looked at her, his brow furrowing in concern. "I'm not sure who to trust anymore. The kingdom is full of lies, and the more I uncover, the more I realize how deep the deception runs." Nia nodded in understanding, her face a mask of calm, but her eyes held a glimmer of sadness. "Deception is like the sea, Prince Baku. It can look still on the surface, but beneath, there are currents that can pull you under if you're not careful." They walked in silence for a moment, the weight of their words hanging heavily in the air. The stillness of the night seemed to press against them, a quiet reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond their reach. "Do you think Mara is the one behind all of this?" Baku asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nia paused, her gaze distant as if searching for something just beyond the walls of the palace. "Mara is just a part of the puzzle, Prince. She is not the cause of the curse, but perhaps she is a symptom of something greater. There are those who seek power, and they will stop at nothing to manipulate you. But the real question is, who benefits from your curse?" Baku thought about her words for a long moment. It wasn't just the women vying for his love that he needed to worry about, it was the kingdom itself. Someone, or perhaps several people, had orchestrated the curse to control him. The thought made his stomach churn. Who would want to harm him so badly? As they neared the royal chamber, a sudden sound stopped them in their tracks, a soft rustling from one of the nearby rooms. Baku's instincts flared, and he motioned for Nia to stay close. They crept toward the sound, careful to make no noise, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpets lining the floors. The door to the room creaked open slowly, and what they saw inside made Baku's blood run cold. Mara was there, but she was not alone. She was speaking with two other figures, cloaked in shadows. The figures spoke in low, urgent voices, but their words were too soft for Baku to make out clearly. However, the anger in Mara's tone was unmistakable. "You promised me, all of you," Mara hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "The prince will choose me, I know it. He will see my worth, and then the curse will be broken. You will not betray me." The other figures, their faces still hidden in darkness, responded in soothing tones. "Patience, Mara. The prince is not ready yet. But do not worry. We will have him. His heart will be ours, and the kingdom will be under our control." Baku's heart pounded in his chest. This was bigger than he had imagined. These people weren't just after his love, they were after power, and they were willing to do whatever it took to manipulate him into giving it to them. Without a word, Baku motioned for Nia to retreat, and they quietly slipped back into the shadows. Once they were out of earshot, Baku's mind raced. Who were these figures? What was their game? He couldn't shake the feeling that the curse he had been born with was part of a larger plan, a plan that involved more than just him. As they made their way back to the palace's main courtyard, Nia spoke quietly, her words cutting through the silence. "You have seen the truth now, Prince Baku. Mara is not the only one who seeks to control you. The kingdom itself is filled with shadows, and you must choose your allies wisely." Baku clenched his fists, a surge of determination rising within him. "I will not let them win. I will expose the truth, and I will break this curse, no matter what it takes." But Nia's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. "It is not just about breaking the curse, Prince. It is about freeing your heart. Only when you understand the truth of those around you, when you see the world for what it truly is, will you be free." The prince nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders as he absorbed her words. He had always believed that the curse was something that could be lifted by finding the right woman, but now, he knew it was not just a simple choice. It was a test of his heart, his ability to see beyond the surface, and to confront the darkness that lay hidden in the kingdom. The next day, as the sun rose high over the kingdom of Valantra, the palace buzzed with activity. The royal courtiers, dressed in their finest clothes, prepared for the next round of the grand contest. The ladies of the court had spent hours in the palace gardens, perfecting their appearances and their performances. Prince Baku had no intention of attending, but his duty demanded it. He could not afford to ignore the contest, not yet. As Baku walked through the courtyard, he noticed Mara among the women gathered for the contest. She looked flawless as always, her beauty radiant in the morning light. But there was something about her that seemed off, something that he could not place. He turned away quickly, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of knowing she had his attention. Nia appeared beside him, her quiet presence a comfort. "It is time to reveal the truth, Prince Baku. Today, we will learn more than we ever have." As the contest began, Baku stood in the shadows, watching the proceedings with a sharp eye. The women were all performing grand dances and reciting poetry, each trying to outdo the other. It was all so carefully orchestrated, so controlled. But Baku could see through it. He could feel the falseness in the air, the desperation behind every smile and every graceful gesture. Suddenly, a loud crash rang through the air. Baku's head snapped around to see one of the contestants, a young woman named Toby, tripping and falling to the ground. She lay there, stunned and vulnerable, her face flushed with embarrassment. Before Baku could react, Nia was by her side, helping her to her feet. The woman's eyes were wide with fear, and her hands trembled as she clutched at Nia's arm. "It's not me," Toby whispered urgently. "I didn't do it. Someone tampered with my dress. Someone is trying to make me fail." Baku felt his heart race. Toby had never shown signs of dishonesty, and yet she seemed genuinely terrified. The truth was becoming clearer by the moment. There were forces working against the contest, forces that had no intention of letting anyone succeed without paying a price. Nia turned to Baku, her eyes filled with resolve. "This is just the beginning, Prince. You must be ready. The darkness that surrounds you is only growing stronger." Baku nodded, his resolve firming. He would not back down. Not now. Not when the truth was so close. And so, with the contest continuing around them, Baku and Nia prepared for the next step in their journey. They had learned the truth about Mara, but the game was far from over. The path ahead was filled with danger, but Baku was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The morning sun bathed the kingdom of Valantra in a soft golden light, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. But inside the royal chambers, Prince Baku could feel the darkness closing in. Despite the bright day outside, there was a heaviness in the air, a foreboding that clung to the walls and made every breath feel like a struggle. Baku stared at his reflection in the large mirror that stood at the far end of the room. His face was tired, worn from the long nights of worry and the constant weight of his curse. He knew something was wrong, he had known it from the moment he stepped into the contest. But what he couldn't figure out was why. Why had he been cursed? Why was the kingdom suddenly crawling with deceit? As he stood lost in thought, Nia entered the room, her quiet presence like a breath of fresh air in the stifling atmosphere. She looked as serene as ever, her golden eyes sharp and knowing. She knew that Baku was on the brink of uncovering the truth, but even she could not foresee what lay ahead. "Prince Baku," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight of understanding. "There are things we must discuss. You cannot keep carrying the burden alone." Baku turned to face her, his eyes tired but determined. "I know there's more to this curse than I've been told. I've seen the lies, the manipulation, but I can't put it all together. Every step I take feels like I'm walking in circles." Nia nodded, stepping closer. "You are not the only one in the dark, Prince. There are others who seek to control the kingdom, who will stop at nothing to bend it to their will. The curse is just a tool, a way to keep you from discovering the truth." Baku's brow furrowed. "And who is behind all of this?" Nia hesitated before answering, her golden eyes flickering with a hint of sadness. "The answer is not as simple as you may think. The forces that work against you are not just powerful, they are cunning. They move in silence, hiding in plain sight." She moved to a nearby table and picked up a small parchment, which she handed to Baku. It was a letter, its edges worn and torn, as if it had been passed from hand to hand many times. Baku unfolded the letter, his eyes scanning the carefully written words. It was a message from the royal advisor, a man named Zuberi, who had been one of the first to welcome him into the contest. The letter spoke of loyalty, of servitude, and of an agreement to ensure that the prince would marry the woman who could break the curse, Mara. The final words made Baku's blood run cold. The prince's heart must be won by the one who holds the key to his fate. We must ensure that Mara succeeds, no matter the cost. Baku's mind raced. Zuberi, the royal advisor, had been secretly working against him all along. He had been the one orchestrating the contest, pushing the women toward him, ensuring that Mara had every opportunity to win. But why? Why was Mara so important? Baku clenched his fists, his anger rising like a storm. This is all a game to them. They want me to be nothing more than a puppet, a pawn in their scheme to control the kingdom. Nia's gaze softened, but her words were firm. Yes, Prince. But you are not a puppet. You have the power to see through their lies, to uncover the truth. You must trust yourself, your heart, and your instincts. The curse is not just a curse, it is a reflection of their hold over you. And when you break that hold, you will be free. Baku took a deep breath, the weight of the letter heavy in his hands. He had been manipulated, but the truth was clearer now. He had to confront Zuberi, confront the shadows that had been pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But that would not be easy. The advisor was a master of deception, and Baku would need more than just strength to defeat him. Where is Zuberi? Baku asked, his voice low and steady. Nia's eyes glimmered with resolve. He is not far, Prince. But you must be careful. He is surrounded by those who will protect him at all costs. To confront him now would be to risk everything. Baku nodded, the weight of the decision settling in his chest. He could no longer sit idly by while his kingdom was slowly slipping into the hands of those who sought to control it. He had to act, and he had to act soon. Then we will find another way, Baku said, his voice full of resolve. I won't let this kingdom fall. I will find the truth, and I will break this curse, no matter what it takes. Nia smiled, a small but knowing smile. I knew you would come to this conclusion, Prince. Now, let us prepare. The road ahead is not an easy one, but it is one that will lead you to the answers you seek. The next few days were a blur of preparations and quiet discussions. Baku knew that confronting Zuberi was not an option at this moment, not with so many eyes watching his every move. But he also knew that time was running out. The longer he waited, the deeper the conspiracy would entrench itself in the heart of the kingdom. Nia, ever the silent guardian, kept her watch over the prince, her eyes always searching for hidden threats. Together, they began to piece together the scattered clues, Zuberi's connections to Mara, the mysterious figures who had been lurking in the shadows, the unspoken agreements that had been made without Baku's knowledge. But with each passing day, the danger grew more apparent. The kingdom's peace was nothing more than a fragile illusion, held together by the strings of manipulation and deceit. And Baku was no longer content to play along with the charade. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Baku made a decision. He would seek out the one person who could help him uncover the truth, someone who knew the inner workings of the royal court better than anyone else. Meet me in the market square tomorrow evening, Baku said quietly to Nia. There is someone I need to see. Someone who can help us find the answers we seek. Nia gave a single nod, her golden eyes narrowing in thought. I know who you speak of, Prince. But be careful. There are many eyes in the market. If you are not discreet, you risk revealing your intentions. Baku gave her a determined look. I will be careful. But this has gone on long enough. It's time to face the truth. The market square of Valantra was bustling with activity the next evening, the air thick with the smells of freshly cooked food, spices, and the laughter of children. It was a place of vibrant life, where merchants peddled their wares, and the people of Valantra came together to celebrate the simple pleasures of life. But tonight, beneath the surface of joy and laughter, a tension hung in the air. Baku moved quickly through the crowded square, his eyes scanning the faces around him, searching for the one person he knew could help him unravel the mystery of his curse. There, at the edge of the market, a familiar figure stood, a man dressed in simple clothes, his face hidden beneath the hood of his cloak. It was Kofi, a former advisor to the royal court who had disappeared years ago under mysterious circumstances. He had once been a trusted ally, but his departure had left a trail of unanswered questions. Baku approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this meeting was dangerous, but he also knew that Kofi held the key to unlocking the truth. "Kofi," Baku called softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The man turned slowly, his eyes gleaming with recognition. "Prince Baku," he said, his voice deep and steady. "I've been expecting you." Kofi's voice was steady, but there was a subtle tension in the air. He lowered his hood slightly, revealing a weathered face, dark eyes that held the weight of many untold stories, and a long scar running down the side of his cheek. Baku couldn't help but feel a chill at the sight of him. This man had once been close to the heart of Valantra's court, and his sudden disappearance had been nothing short of suspicious. "Prince Baku," Kofi repeated, his eyes studying the prince with a mixture of recognition and caution. "You've grown, but there's still a fire in your eyes. I can see it." Baku wasted no time with pleasantries. "I need your help, Kofi. There's something wrong with this kingdom. My curse, Mara, Zubari, it's all connected, and I don't know who to trust anymore." Kofi's expression softened slightly, but there was still a guardedness in his stance. "I've been watching you, Prince. I knew the day would come when you'd seek me out. The court is filled with shadows, and you're right to be cautious. But you're walking a dangerous path. You may not like what you find." Baku felt the weight of Kofi's words settle over him. "I don't care about the danger anymore. I want the truth. I need to know why they've done this to me." Kofi glanced around cautiously, as though ensuring no one was listening in on their conversation. "All right, but not here. We'll talk later, in a safer place. Meet me tonight at the old shrine by the cliffs. It's a place where no one dares go, so it'll be quiet." Baku nodded, though his heart pounded with anticipation and fear. The shrine by the cliffs was a place shrouded in mystery and whispered rumors. No one ventured there willingly, not since the old king's reign had ended. But Kofi's urgency and the solemn look in his eyes told Baku this was the only chance he would have to uncover the truth. As Baku turned to leave, Kofi's voice called out to him. "Remember, Prince, trust is a rare thing in this kingdom. Even I may not have all the answers. But I know one thing, you must be prepared for what lies ahead." Baku gave a brief nod, his mind swirling with the implications of Kofi's words. He couldn't let his doubts or fears control him. He had to push forward, no matter the cost. The rest of the day felt like an eternity. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over Valantra, Baku made his way to the cliffs, his heart heavy with the weight of what he might learn. He could hear the waves crashing against the rocks below, the sound a rhythmic reminder of the storm that was about to break in his life. The old shrine sat on the edge of the cliffs, its stone pillars weathered by time and the elements. The air was thick with salt from the sea, and the wind howled through the trees surrounding the shrine. Baku's footsteps echoed in the empty space as he approached. Kofi was already there, standing by the entrance of the shrine, his back turned. As Baku stepped closer, the men turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "You've come," Kofi said, his voice low. Baku stood tall, his hands clenched at his sides. "I'm ready to hear what you have to say." Kofi studied him for a moment, his eyes narrowing as if trying to gauge the prince's resolve. Finally, he spoke. "The curse you bear, Prince Baku, was never meant to be broken. It was placed on you by those who wish to control this kingdom. Your father, King Isaiah, was a man of honor, but his rule was also one of power. When he fell, a group of nobles saw an opportunity to seize control of Valantra. They sought to weaken your line, to keep you from ascending the throne. And so, they cursed you." Baku's heart skipped a beat. But why? Why me? Why this curse? Kofi's gaze grew distant, as if recalling something painful. "Because you were born with a heart too pure. Your goodness, your compassion, it made you a threat to their plans. They couldn't control a man like that. So, they cursed you to fall in love with someone whose heart wasn't pure, knowing that it would lead to your downfall. Baku's mind whirled. Mara. She's part of their plan. Kofi nodded grimly. Yes. She was chosen, groomed, and manipulated. She's not as innocent as she appears. She was trained to play the role of the perfect bride, someone who could deceive you into breaking your own heart. But it's more than that, Prince. Mara's role in this curse is not just about you. She's a tool to keep you under control. The moment you marry her, you'll be bound to their will. Baku's chest tightened. The thought of being used in such a way filled him with fury. So, they want me to marry her, to keep me trapped in their game. But if I refuse, what happens? Kofi's eyes darkened. The curse will only grow stronger. They've placed more than one spell on you, and each time you reject their will, the curse will twist. But there is a way to break it, only it's not something you'll want to hear. Baku swallowed hard, bracing himself. What is it? Kofi took a deep breath, his voice heavy with regret. The only way to break the curse is to make a sacrifice. You must choose someone to take your place, someone with a pure heart, someone who has never been tainted by the corruption of the court. That person will bear the curse in your stead, and only then will the kingdom be freed from its grip. Baku recoiled in shock. What are you saying? I have to sacrifice someone else for my freedom. Kofi nodded solemnly. It is the only way, Prince. The curse will never lift on its own. You must decide who will bear the weight of it, yourself or someone else. A silence fell between them, the wind howling through the trees as Baku processed Kofi's words. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions. How could he possibly make such a decision? To sacrifice another person, to doom someone to live with the curse in his place, it was a terrible thought. But as the silence stretched on, a part of him knew that he couldn't bear this burden forever. If there was any hope for Valantra, for the people he loved, he had to make a choice. I will break this curse, Baku said finally, his voice full of determination. But I won't sacrifice anyone else. I will find another way. Kofi watched him closely, a small flicker of respect in his eyes. You have a strong heart, Prince. But be warned, there may be no other way. The kingdom is drowning in its own lies, and the only way out may be through a price too high to pay. Baku turned away from him, his gaze fixed on the dark horizon. The storm was coming, and he was ready to face it. The wind howled as Baku stood at the edge of the cliffs, the sea crashing violently below. The weight of Kofi's words pressed heavily on his chest. He could feel the curse tightening around him, like an invisible chain slowly pulling him deeper into a trap from which there seemed to be no escape. But there was no turning back now. He had made his decision. He would find another way to break the curse, even if it meant facing unimaginable danger. The people of Valantra, his kingdom, his people, all depended on him. The thought of Mara, the woman whom he had believed to be the key to his freedom, now felt like a betrayal. How had she been so deeply intertwined in the web of lies? How could someone who appeared so pure have been chosen to deceive him? Baku turned back toward Kofi, whose eyes had not left him during the entire exchange. If there's another way, Baku said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him, I will find it. I won't let them destroy Valantra. Kofi gave a reluctant nod, his face hardening with resolve. Then you will need help. You cannot face the court alone, and you cannot break this curse without uncovering all of the secrets. Trust no one, Prince Baku, not even those who have served you. Baku clenched his fists, his determination strengthening. I trust you, Kofi. I know you're not deceiving me. But I will not let Mara suffer because of the mistakes of others. I will find a way to lift the curse without anyone else bearing the burden. Kofi's eyes flickered with something that could have been pity or approval, but it was gone so quickly that Baku couldn't tell. The path you choose is fraught with danger. But it's your choice, Prince. You must be ready for what lies ahead. With that, Kofi turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Baku alone on the cliffs. The prince stood there for a moment longer, staring at the churning sea below. The storm was coming, but so was his resolve. He could not, would not, allow Valantra to fall into darkness. The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. Baku spent every waking moment studying the ancient texts and old scrolls in the royal library, seeking any hint of a way to break the curse without the terrible sacrifice Kofi had mentioned. He combed through the royal archives, desperate for answers. But the more he read, the more he realized how little he truly knew about his kingdom and its past. Zuberi, the royal advisor, was ever present, constantly offering his counsel and encouragement for Baku's courtship with Mara. His words were always sweet, but Baku couldn't shake the suspicion that Zuberi was still working behind the scenes, guiding events toward a conclusion that suited his own agenda. In the evenings, when the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Baku would walk alone by the palace's grand gardens, his mind swirling with questions. He would often find himself staring into the pond that reflected the moon's light, the stillness offering a brief reprieve from the chaos that filled his life. It was during one of these walks that he saw her again, Nia. Her golden eyes were as piercing as ever, but tonight there was something different about her. A sense of urgency lingered in the air, as if she knew that time was running out. "Prince Baku," she said, her voice soft but filled with a weight of knowledge. "The court grows restless. They know something is wrong. Zuberi has made his move. He has set the final part of his plan into motion." Baku turned to face her, his heart skipping a beat. "What are you saying, Nia? What has Zuberi done?" She stepped closer, her eyes scanning the surroundings to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "The final piece of the puzzle is Mara. She is not just a tool for Zuberi, she is the key to his ultimate plan. He intends to use her to fully bind you to the curse. Once you marry her, you will be bound to his will forever." Baku's heart pounded in his chest. "I knew it. He's been manipulating me this whole time. But why Mara? Why does she have such power over me?" Nia's eyes softened, but there was no compassion in her gaze, only a deep understanding of the tragic fate that awaited Baku. Mara was not chosen by chance. She is the daughter of a powerful sorcerer, one who was loyal to the old king. He made a pact with the nobles to ensure his family's power would continue even after his death. And now, Mara is the vessel through which they will control you. Baku recoiled. "Mara is the daughter of a sorcerer. And she has been using me all along." Nia nodded solemnly. "Not by her own will. She was raised in the shadow of power, groomed to be the perfect bride. But there is still a part of her that is pure, hidden beneath the layers of deception and manipulation. That is why the curse has not yet fully claimed you. If you can reach that part of her, if you can awaken her true heart, the curse may be broken without the need for sacrifice." Baku took a step back, his mind racing. "You want me to save her? After everything she's done?" Nia's voice softened, and for the first time, Baku saw a flicker of empathy in her eyes. "Mara is not entirely lost, Prince. She is caught in a web of deceit that she herself doesn't fully understand. You have the power to help her see the truth, but only if you can see through the lies that bind you both." The prince's heart ached. Could it be true? Could Mara still be saved? He had been so focused on his own suffering, his own curse, that he had forgotten the possibility that there might be more to her than he had realized. But the time for questions was running out. He had to act, now. Baku took a deep breath, his mind made up. "I will confront her. I will find a way to awaken the truth inside of her, to break the curse. If there's any hope for Valantra, for both of us, I must take that chance." Nia gave him a small nod, her gaze steady. "Then be careful, Prince. The truth is a powerful thing, but it can also be dangerous. Some truths, once uncovered, can never be undone." As Baku turned to leave, Nia's final words echoed in his ears, "You are not alone in this, Prince. The mermaid, she is watching over you, too." Baku paused. "The mermaid?" Nia's lips curved into a small, mysterious smile. "Yes. She has been guiding you in ways you do not yet understand. But she is your ally. And when the time is right, she will reveal herself fully. Trust her. With those final words, Nia disappeared into the shadows, leaving Baku alone with his thoughts. The wind blew stronger now, the storm on the horizon growing closer. He had to prepare himself for what was to come, for the final confrontation, for the truth that would change everything. The fate of Volantra, of Mara, and of himself hung in the balance. The days grew shorter as Baku's resolve hardened like the stone foundations of Volantra's castle. Each morning brought new whispers, each evening more questions. Zubari's plans were drawing closer to their inevitable conclusion, and Baku could feel the weight of the kingdom's expectations bearing down on him. Despite all of this, Baku's mind kept returning to Nia's words, "The mermaid, she is watching over you, too." It seemed impossible. How could a creature of the sea, a being so foreign to the palace life he had always known, be part of his journey? But something in his heart told him that Nia had spoken the truth. The mermaid had helped him before, when he was on the edge of despair after the curse had first been placed upon him. She had been the one who had saved the child accused of witchcraft, the one who had drawn him into the depths of Volantra's darkest mysteries. The more Baku thought about it, the more certain he became that this mysterious mermaid was no stranger to the kingdom's secrets. There was something about her, a presence that lingered even when she was not around. As the days passed, Baku's thoughts grew more tangled, much like the threads of fate that seemed to weave around him. The court was a sea of bright silks and glittering jewels as Mara entered for the next stage of the grand courtship competition. This time, the competition had shifted to testing the courtships of the competing women. Each maiden had been tasked with completing a series of challenges that tested their character, their purity of heart, and their ability to lead the kingdom alongside Prince Baku. Mara, in her flowing gown of blue and gold, entered with her head held high. She seemed to glide across the room, as though the very air parted before her. But Baku could see something different now, something behind her eyes, a depth that he had missed before. Was it regret? Or was it something darker? He couldn't tell, but one thing was clear, the time had come to make a choice. With every challenge, with every gesture, Baku would have to decide whether Mara was the one who could truly lift the curse, or whether the curse was a trap meant to bind them both forever. As Mara performed the final task, a test of leadership where each maiden had to direct a team of soldiers through a mock battle, Baku felt an undeniable pull in his chest. There was something about the way she spoke, the way she commanded the soldiers, that reminded him of something he couldn't quite put his finger on. But the moment was interrupted by the arrival of a familiar figure. As the court's attention shifted to the grand entrance, a figure clad in a simple village dress stepped into the hall. Her skin glistened as though it were kissed by the sea, and her hair, long and wild, was adorned with small shells and seaweed. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at the stranger who had entered, and for a moment, Baku's heart stopped. It was the mermaid. She had transformed into a simple village girl, one that no one could recognize, yet every movement she made seemed imbued with an otherworldly grace. Her golden eyes caught Baku's gaze, and for the briefest moment, he saw something in them that made him feel both frightened and comforted at once. She was here, in the heart of the palace, in the very place where he had sought answers for so long. The mermaid, disguised as a girl, walked forward, and Baku watched her every move. As she moved through the court, she did not look like the captivating sea creature he had once seen, but the grace in her steps was undeniable. Then, as if by instinct, she stopped before Baku and bowed her head respectfully. Her voice was quiet but filled with purpose. "Prince Baku," she said, her voice like a melody carried on the waves, "I have come to take part in the courtship, for I know what you seek." Baku's heart raced. The mermaid knew. Why? Baku's voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you here, in the middle of all this?" The mermaid smiled softly, her golden eyes shimmering with a knowing light. "Because I have always been here, Prince. Watching over you, waiting for the right time to reveal myself fully. You do not need to go through this alone. I can help you." Baku felt a mixture of confusion and awe. He had always known that there was something more to the mermaid, but he never expected her to come to him like this, in the heart of the palace. "How can you help me?" he asked, his voice full of hope. The mermaid stepped closer, her voice soft and full of sorrow. "The curse that was placed on you can be broken, but only if you see the truth. There is a force at work here, a web of lies that binds both you and Mara. You must trust your heart, not just the challenge before you. The truth is hidden, and it will only be revealed when you face the darkness within yourself. Baku's brow furrowed. What do you mean, the darkness within myself? She placed a gentle hand on his arm, her touch cool, like the sea breeze. You are not alone in this, Prince. What you seek is not just the breaking of a curse. You seek to restore balance to Valantra, to heal the wounds of the past. You must choose the right path, and sometimes, that path will not be the one you expect. As Baku absorbed her words, something inside him began to shift. He realized then that his journey was not just about the curse, or Mara, or even the kingdom, it was about his own growth, his own understanding of what it meant to be a leader. The mermaid was right. There was a darkness within him, one that he had been too afraid to confront. But the mermaid's words had awakened something inside him. He had to face this darkness, not just for himself, but for Valantra. The curse was a reflection of the kingdom's fractured heart, and he could not break it until he understood the forces that had caused it. I don't know what to do, Baku admitted, his voice tinged with uncertainty. You will know, the mermaid said, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. The answers lie within you, Prince. Trust your heart, and the kingdom will heal. The competition went on, but Baku's mind was elsewhere. His focus was no longer on the courtship itself, but on the choices that lay ahead. As the day drew to a close, he excused himself from the court, his thoughts too heavy to stay amidst the festivities. That night, as he walked alone by the gardens, deep in thought, the mermaid's words echoed in his mind. It was time to confront the truth, not just of the curse, but of himself. He needed to face the darkness, to accept the parts of him he had tried to ignore. In the distance, the sea whispered to him, calling him back to its depths, and Baku knew what he had to do. The moon hung high over the kingdom of Valantra, casting its silvery light on the lush gardens and towering castles. Prince Baku walked alone, his thoughts tangled in a web of uncertainty. The mermaid's words echoed in his mind, as did the weight of the curse that bound him. It was clear now that his journey was not just about breaking the curse placed upon him, but about discovering truths buried deep within himself and his kingdom. As he reached the edge of the gardens, where the stone path met the water, Baku stopped. The gentle lapping of the waves against the shore seemed to beckon him, drawing him closer to the sea. He closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the cool night air to wash over him. You are not alone in this. The voice, soft and melodic, drifted to him like a whisper on the wind. He opened his eyes and turned to find the mermaid standing there, her golden eyes glowing in the darkness. She was no longer in the form of a simple village girl, but rather in the shape he had first encountered her, her long hair flowing, her shimmering scales barely visible beneath the moonlight. You're here, Baku said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and confusion. Why now? Why reveal yourself to me like this? The mermaid smiled, her lips curving with a knowing expression. I have always been here, Prince Baku. I have watched over you, guided you from the shadows. But the time has come for you to face the truth, for both yourself and your kingdom. Baku's heart pounded in his chest. The truth? What do you mean? She stepped closer, her gaze intense. The curse that binds you is not just a punishment, it is a reflection of the imbalance within Valantra. The kingdom has long been ruled by secrets, by betrayal, by darkness. And now, that darkness is threatening to swallow everything. You are the key to restoring balance, but only if you are willing to confront the shadows inside you. Baku swallowed hard. But I don't know how to face it. I don't know what to do. The mermaid reached out, placing a hand on his arm. Her touch was cool, comforting, like the embrace of the sea itself. You do not need to have all the answers now. You need only to trust yourself and those who truly care for you. Baku's mind flashed to Mara. His heart ached at the thought of her, her beauty, her strength, her smile. But he also remembered the uncertainty in her eyes, the feeling that something was not quite right. Is Mara part of this darkness? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. The mermaid hesitated for a moment before answering. Mara is a part of the puzzle, Prince. But she is not the darkness itself. She, too, is a victim of forces beyond her control. The question is not whether she is part of the darkness, but whether she is willing to embrace the light. Baku felt a heavy weight in his chest. How could he ever understand what Mara truly wanted when he himself was so lost? How could he lead his kingdom when he was unsure of the path to take? The mermaid's gaze softened, and she gently lifted his chin so that their eyes met. You are not alone in this, Prince. Remember, you have allies. The truth may be hidden, but it will always find its way to the surface if you are brave enough to seek it. The following morning, as the sun rose over Valantra, Baku gathered his strength. The time for hesitation had passed. He could no longer afford to wait for someone else to show him the way. If he was to save his kingdom, he would need to face the darkness, within Mara, within himself, and within the court. He made his way to the royal chamber where the grand courtship competition was set to continue. The tension in the air was palpable, the nobles and courtiers murmuring among themselves as they speculated on the outcome of the contest. Baku entered the room, his steps deliberate and strong, his eyes focused on the prize, the truth. Mara stood at the center of the room, her radiant beauty drawing the eyes of all who beheld her. She wore a gown of rich green silk that seemed to shimmer like the forest itself, her hair cascading in waves down her back. For a moment, she looked like the woman Baku had once admired, the woman who had stolen his heart. But as he approached her, something shifted in the air. There was a subtle change, a flicker of doubt, a sense that something was wrong. Mara met his gaze, her expression softening as she smiled. Prince Baku, you have come. Baku stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest. Mara, there are things I must know. I must understand what is happening. The curse, why did you choose this path? What is your true purpose? Mara's smile faltered, and for a brief moment, Baku saw something in her eyes, a flicker of fear, a glimpse of the woman he had once thought he knew. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by a mask of calm composure. I do not know what you mean, Mara said, her voice steady. I am here because I wish to be your queen, Prince. To rule alongside you, to help guide this kingdom to greatness. Baku stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. You are not being truthful with me. I know there is more at play here. The curse, it is not just about me. It is about Valantra. It is about the lies that have been buried for so long. I will not be your puppet, Mara. For a long moment, Mara said nothing. Her eyes darted around the room, as though seeking an escape. But the silence was broken by a voice that came from the shadows, one that no one had expected. I told you he would see through it, my dear. The room went still as Zubri, the royal advisor, stepped forward from the crowd. His face was as calm as ever, but his eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. You, Baku spat, his anger rising. You've been behind this all along. Zubri's lips curled into a cruel smile. It was always meant to be this way, Prince. The curse was never just about you, it was about securing the throne for those who truly deserve it. Mara was merely a pawn in a game much larger than you could ever understand. Baku's fists clenched at his sides. You will not destroy this kingdom. I will not allow it. Zubri chuckled darkly. You have no choice. The kingdom belongs to those who can see the truth. And the truth is, you are nothing but a tool, just as Mara is. Baku turned to Mara, his eyes pleading. You don't have to do this. You can choose a different path. You can choose the light. Mara's eyes filled with confusion, and for a moment, Baku saw a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by the cold mask of a woman who had been forced into a role she didn't fully understand. Prince Baku, she whispered, I am sorry. And with that, the final piece of the puzzle was revealed. The room held its breath as Baku stood facing Mara, his heart pounding like the beat of a drum. The weight of Zubri's words hung in the air, suffocating, threatening to crush everything Baku had ever known about his world. The court was silent, the nobles and courtiers watching with wide eyes, unsure of how the prince would respond. Baku's gaze never left Mara. Her eyes were downcast now, her expression unreadable, but Baku could still see the confusion and uncertainty beneath her cool facade. She wasn't the villain in this story, not entirely. There was something deeper at play here, something that had been hidden for too long. He could feel it in his bones, the pull of destiny tightening around him like a noose. "Mara," Baku whispered, stepping closer to her, "I know you're not evil. You've been caught in a web you didn't weave. You can still change. Together, we can change everything." Mara lifted her eyes to meet his, and for a fleeting moment, Baku saw the girl he had once admired. But that moment quickly passed, replaced by a cold resolve that chilled him to the core. She stepped back, away from him, her posture stiff. "I cannot change, Prince Baku," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "The path has been chosen for me. I am bound by promises made long before you and I met. You would never understand." Baku reached out, his hand trembling slightly. "Mara, please. Enough." Zubari's voice rang out, sharp and commanding, cutting through the tension like a knife. His dark eyes gleamed with malice as he stepped forward, a smirk playing on his lips. "Your pleas are meaningless, Prince. There is no escaping fate. The kingdom will fall, just as we intended." Baku's heart sank as Zubari's words echoed in his ears. The truth was slowly coming into focus, everything had been orchestrated from the beginning. The curse, the courtship, the competition, it was all a ruse to seize control of Valantra. The kingdom was nothing more than a pawn in a game of power, and Baku had been too blinded by his own desires to see it. But no more. Baku had been a fool, but not anymore. He would not let Valantra fall into the hands of deceit and manipulation. Not on his watch. Baku's eyes burned with determination as he turned to face Zubari, his voice steady and unwavering. "You won't win. You and Mara, you've been playing this game for far too long. But it ends now." Zubari laughed, a low, mocking sound that sent a chill down Baku's spine. "You think you have the power to stop me, Prince? You are nothing but a puppet, dancing on the strings of fate. The curse was never meant to be broken. It was meant to break you." Baku's anger surged, hot and fierce. He stepped toward Zubari, his fists clenched at his sides. "I may not have all the answers, Zubari, but I know one thing for sure. I will not allow you to destroy everything I hold dear. Not my kingdom. Not my people. And certainly not Mara." Zubari's face twisted into a snarl. "You are a fool, Prince. You think your heart can save you. Your emotions are your greatest weakness." But Baku wasn't listening anymore. His thoughts were focused on one thing, the truth. The darkness that had taken hold of Valantra could only be vanquished by the light of understanding, by the strength of unity. And that meant confronting the darkness within his own heart as well. "Zubari, you may have played your hand well, but I see through your lies now. The curse you placed on me, the lies you fed Mara, everything you've done has led to this moment. And it ends here." With a final step, Baku reached for the medallion around his neck, the one that had been passed down from generation to generation in his family. It was the symbol of Valantra's royal bloodline, the key to unlocking the power of the throne. The curse had been placed on him as a means of breaking this very connection, but Baku knew now that it was also the source of his strength. As his fingers brushed the cool surface of the medallion, a flash of light erupted from it, bright and pure. The room was bathed in its radiance, and for a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Zubari's face twisted in fear as the light grew stronger, flooding the room with its warmth. "No," he shouted, stumbling back, his eyes wide with panic. "This is impossible." But Baku didn't flinch. He stood tall, his eyes locked onto Zubari's, a quiet strength emanating from him. The light of the medallion illuminated the darkness, cutting through the shadows that had long held the kingdom in their grip. "You are no longer in control, Zubari," Baku said, his voice steady and resolute. "This kingdom belongs to the people, not to those who seek to destroy it for their own gain." And with that, the curse that had bound Baku, the curse that had been placed on him so many years ago, began to unravel. The chains of darkness fell away, and a new light filled the room. But even as the curse was lifted, the true battle was far from over. The light from the medallion did not just reveal the truth, it exposed the hidden scars of Valantra's past. The darkness that had held the kingdom in its grasp was not just the work of one man. It was a force that had taken root deep within the kingdom's foundations, one that would take time to root out completely. Baku turned to Mara, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and understanding. She had been a pawn in Zubari's game, just as much as he had been. She was not the enemy. She was another soul caught in the web of lies and deceit that had woven itself into the very fabric of the kingdom. Mara's eyes met his, and for the first time, Baku saw the fear and regret in her gaze. She was no longer the confident, commanding figure she had been just moments before. She was vulnerable, just like him. "I didn't know," Mara whispered, her voice filled with sorrow. "I didn't know what I was a part of. I was just following orders. I thought I was doing the right thing." Baku stepped closer to her, his heart aching for the woman who had once captured his heart. "You don't have to do this, Mara. You don't have to be part of this darkness anymore. We can fix this together." Mara's eyes filled with tears as she took a tentative step toward him. "I don't know how. I'm so sorry, Baku. I never wanted to hurt you." Baku placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but gentle. "We'll figure it out. Together." As the two stood there, amidst the fading light of the medallion, a new understanding began to take root between them. They had both been victims of a system that had sought to use them for its own ends. But now, they had the power to break free, to rebuild their kingdom from the ashes of the past. But Zubari was not finished yet. From the shadows, his voice rang out, low and menacing. "This isn't over, Prince. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from finished. There are more forces at play here than you can possibly imagine. The kingdom will not fall so easily." Baku turned to face him, his eyes burning with resolve. "Then we will fight, Zubari. We will fight for the kingdom, for the truth, and for the future of Valantra." With that, the final confrontation had only just begun. The once proud walls of Valantra seemed to tremble with the growing tension. The echo of Zubari's words still lingered in the air like a curse, casting a shadow over the kingdom. Baku stood firm, his eyes locked on the men who had caused so much pain, so much turmoil in their land. But despite the threat that Zubari posed, Baku could feel the stirrings of hope deep within him, hope that had been reignited by the light of truth, hope that had begun to heal the wounds of the kingdom. Mara stood by his side, her expression a mixture of guilt and determination. She had once been his rival, the woman he had thought would be his queen. But now, in the face of the enemy, she was his ally, someone who had been caught in the same web of deception, someone who, like him, was determined to bring an end to the reign of darkness. "Zubari," Baku began, his voice steady but filled with resolve, "you may have twisted the hearts of those around you, but you are not the true ruler of Valantra. The kingdom belongs to the people, not to those who seek to control them through fear and manipulation." Zubari's lips curled into a sneer, his eyes glowing with malice. "You still don't understand, do you, Prince? You may have broken the curse that bound you, but the real power in this kingdom lies not in your hands, nor in the hands of your precious people. It lies in the shadows, in the ancient forces that have always governed Valantra." Baku's heart raced. He knew that Zubari was no ordinary man. The power that radiated from him was unnatural, dark, and dangerous. And though the curse had been broken, Baku knew that there were still deep, hidden forces at play, forces that had been woven into the fabric of Valantra long before his time. Mara stepped forward, her voice trembling with both fear and defiance. "What do you mean, Zubari? What ancient forces are you talking about?" Zubari chuckled darkly, a sound that sent chills down their spines. "You've heard the legends, haven't you? The ancient gods, the spirits of the sea and sky, the forces that once ruled this land. They have been sleeping for centuries, but they are waking now. And I am their chosen vessel." The word struck Baku like a blow to the chest. The ancient gods? The spirits? Could Zubari really be working with them? He had always been a man of ambition, but to claim such power. It was terrifying, and yet, it made a strange kind of sense. "You've sold your soul to them," Baku said, his voice filled with disbelief. "You've made a pact with forces that you don't fully understand." Zubari's eyes burned with feverish intensity. "I understand them more than you could ever hope to. They have promised me the throne, Prince. And nothing, not you, not Mara, not even the people of Volantra, will stand in my way." With a wave of his hand, the air around them seemed to thicken, growing heavy with the scent of salt and earth. The winds shifted, howling through the windows of the castle as if the kingdom itself were responding to Zubri's dark call. A storm was brewing, one that would tear through Volantra's very soul. Mara's heart raced. "What have you done, Zubri?" she cried out. "You're playing with forces beyond your control. You don't understand the price of this power." Zubri's lips twisted into a sinister grin. "Oh, but I do. The price is nothing compared to what I stand to gain. This kingdom will bend to my will, and with the ancient gods on my side, no one will be able to stop me." Baku clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the medallion still around his neck. The light from the medallion pulsed softly, a quiet reminder of the strength that flowed through him. He had always believed that his destiny was tied to the curse, to the weight of his bloodline, but now he understood. His true power lay not in the medallion alone, but in the choices he made, choices guided by his heart and by the people he loved. "You're wrong, Zubri," Baku said, his voice firm. "You may have made a deal with dark forces, but there is still light in this kingdom. I will fight for Volantra, for its people, and for the future. And I will not let you destroy everything we hold dear." The storm outside raged louder, the winds howling with unnatural fury. Baku could feel the very earth trembling beneath his feet, but he stood tall. With Mara by his side, and the mermaid's words still echoing in his heart, he knew that the battle for Volantra was not over. It was only just beginning. As the tension in the room reached its breaking point, the doors to the castle burst open. A figure stepped into the chamber, silhouetted against the raging storm outside. It was the mermaid, her form shimmering in the dim light, her hair cascading like a silver waterfall. She moved toward Baku and Mara, her eyes focused and calm. "Prince Baku," she said, her voice as soothing as the ocean breeze, "there is more to this story than you know. The ancient gods that Zubri has allied himself with, they are not as invincible as he believes. They may have power, but they also have weaknesses." Baku's eyes widened. "What do you mean? How can we fight something so powerful?" The mermaid stepped closer, her presence filling the room with an aura of serenity. "The gods are tied to the forces of nature, the sea, the earth, the sky. Their power comes from the balance that exists between these elements. But when that balance is disturbed, when the forces become too one-sided, their power begins to wane." She turned to Mara. "Mara, you have a unique connection to the land, to the earth. You were chosen for this very reason. You have the power to restore the balance, to weaken the hold that these gods have over Volantra." Mara looked at the mermaid, her confusion evident. "But how? I'm just a woman caught in the middle of this." The mermaid smiled gently. "You are not just anyone, Mara. You are a bridge between the old world and the new, a key to unlocking the power within the land. You have the strength to stand against Zubri and the forces he's awakened." Baku placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone. We'll face it together." Mara nodded, her fear slowly turning into determination. "I will not let Zubri destroy my kingdom. I will stand with you, Prince Baku. We will stop him." The mermaid nodded, her eyes shining with approval. "Together, you have the strength to bring balance back to Volantra. But you must act quickly. The gods are awakening, and Zubri is using their power to unleash a storm that will tear this land apart." Baku and Mara exchanged a look of understanding. The time for hesitation had passed. It was now or never. The storm outside reached a crescendo, the winds howling with such force that the very castle seemed to shake. Zubri's voice rose over the storm, mocking and triumphant. "It is too late, Prince Baku," he shouted. "The gods are with me now. Volantra is mine." But Baku stood firm, his resolve unwavering. With Mara at his side, the mermaid's wisdom guiding them, he knew that this was the final battle. And no matter the cost, he would fight to the very end. The winds howled, the sea roared, and the earth trembled beneath their feet. But amidst the chaos, there was a flicker of light, a glimmer of hope, that would guide them through the storm. The skies above Volantra were ablaze with lightning, flashing in violent streaks of white, as though the heavens themselves were at war. The very earth trembled beneath Baku's feet, and the sound of the storm outside was deafening, a growling beast that sought to tear the kingdom apart. The castle walls seemed to pulse with the energy of the storm, the thunder resonating deep into their bones. But despite the chaos raging around them, Baku felt a strange stillness in his heart. It was as if the turmoil outside had awakened a fire within him, one that would not be snuffed out. Mara stood beside him, her face pale, but her eyes now full of determination. The fear that had once gripped her was slowly dissipating, replaced by a resolve to fight for the kingdom, to fight for Volantra. The mermaid, her shimmering figure aglow in the dim castle light, stood silently behind them, her presence a steadying force. Baku looked over his shoulder at her. "What do we do now?" he asked. "How do we stop Zuburi? He's got control of the ancient gods, and they're more powerful than anything we've ever faced." The mermaid's gaze was calm, her voice a soothing whisper amidst the storm's fury. "The gods, while powerful, are tied to the elements of nature, earth, sea, and sky. Zuburi has stirred the storm, awakened the winds and the waves, but the earth is still strong beneath us. You must bring balance back, Baku. You must call upon the earth's strength." Baku frowned, not fully understanding. "Call upon the earth's strength? What does that mean?" The mermaid's eyes glimmered with ancient wisdom. "The earth is alive, Baku. It is not just soil and stone. It is a force, a living being that responds to those who honor it. And you, Prince Baku, are a child of the earth. You have the blood of the ancients running through your veins, the power of your ancestors in your bones. You must reach within yourself, find the connection to the land, and use it to restore the balance that Zuburi has disrupted." Baku's mind raced. He had always known that his lineage held great power, but he had never fully understood what that power meant. His connection to the earth, to the land of Volantra, was it real? Could he really tap into something so ancient, so primal? He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let the storm's fury wash over him. The winds howled, the sea roared, but beneath it all, he felt something else, a deep, steady pulse, like the heartbeat of the land itself. The earth, the soil beneath his feet, the very rocks and trees that made up Volantra, all seemed to call to him. "You are the prince. You are the child of the land." The words echoed in his mind like a mantra, urging him forward. He extended his hand to the ground, and as his fingers brushed the earth, he felt a warmth, a connection. The power surged through him, filling him with a sense of strength he had never known. "Yes," Baku whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. "I understand." He turned to Mara, his eyes filled with determination. "It's time to stop this. Together, we can restore the balance and stop Zuburi." Mara nodded, her hand clutching his tightly. "We're with you, Baku. Let's save Volantra." The storm outside was at its peak, and Zuburi's laughter echoed through the halls of the castle. He stood on the balcony, his arms raised to the sky, as if he were a conductor directing the chaos. His eyes were wide with madness, his face twisted in triumph. "Yes. Yes. This is only the beginning. Volantra will bow to me." Zuburi shouted, his voice booming over the roar of the storm. But as his words echoed, something shifted. The ground beneath him trembled, and the storm seemed to lose its edge, as if the very air had been stolen from it. Zuburi's eyes snapped open, and his expression twisted into one of confusion. "No. No. This cannot be," he shouted. "The gods. The storm. It is mine to control." He turned to face the swirling winds, his hands raised to command them. But instead of bending to his will, the winds grew still. The lightning flickered and died. The sea, once raging, grew calm. It was as if the very elements themselves were rebelling against him. A voice rang out, strong and clear, cutting through the silence. "Zuburi," it called. "You do not control Volantra. You never have." Zuburi whipped around, his eyes wild with fury. There, standing in the doorway, were Baku and Mara. Behind them, the mermaid stood, her form glowing with an ethereal light. You cannot fight the balance of nature, Zubri, Baku said, his voice steady. The gods may have given you power, but they are not invincible. The earth has its own strength, and it will not bow to you. Zubri's face twisted in rage. You think you can stop me? You, a mere boy who doesn't understand the forces he wields. The gods have chosen me. I am their vessel, and Valantra will be mine. Baku stepped forward, his heart racing, but his resolve unshaken. He could feel the earth beneath him, its strength rising within him like a tidal wave. The power of the land, the sea, and the sky, each element was in harmony once more, and he was the link that held them together. You may have the gods' favor, Baku said, his voice rising, but you do not have the will of Valantra behind you. The people of this kingdom will never follow a tyrant. They will rise against you. Zubri snarled, his hands crackling with dark energy. Then I will destroy you all. He launched himself at Baku, his eyes blazing with fury. But before Zubri could reach him, the mermaid stepped forward, her hand raised. The air around her shimmered, and the earth itself seemed to respond. The ground beneath Zubri's feet cracked open, sending him stumbling back. He gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief. What is this? He cried, panic creeping into his voice. The earth, it's fighting me. Baku's eyes never left Zubri. You have underestimated the land, Zubri. You have disturbed its balance, and now it will correct itself. With a sudden motion, Baku dropped to one knee, his hands pressed to the ground. The earth trembled once more, but this time, it was different. It was no longer just a tremor, it was the pulse of the land, the heartbeat of Valantra, and Baku was the conduit through which it flowed. The ground beneath Zubri cracked open wider, the earth itself rising to bind him in place. Zubri screamed in rage, his dark magic faltering as he was trapped by the very forces he had tried to control. You cannot fight the earth, Zubri, Baku said, rising to his feet. This kingdom is not yours to destroy. You will pay for your treachery. Zubri struggled, his hands crackling with dark power, but it was futile. The earth held him fast, and the storm that had once raged around Valantra began to calm. The winds died down, the lightning faded, and the sea grew still. With one final cry of defeat, Zubri fell to his knees, the power draining from him. The mermaid stepped forward, her eyes filled with both sorrow and triumph. It is over, she said softly. The balance has been restored. Baku turned to Mara, his heart swelling with gratitude. We did it. Valantra is safe. Mara smiled, her eyes filled with pride. Together. As the storm fully subsided, the first rays of dawn began to break through the clouds, bathing the kingdom in a soft, golden light. The people of Valantra, once cowering in fear, now began to emerge from their homes, looking toward the castle in awe. The storm was gone. The curse was broken. And Valantra was free. But as Baku looked toward the horizon, he knew that this was only the beginning. The path to healing would not be easy, but with Mara, the mermaid, and the people of Valantra by his side, he was ready to rebuild. And as the sun rose higher, so did the hope for a brighter future. The morning sun bathed Valantra in warm, golden hues, casting a gentle glow across the kingdom. The storm had passed, but its impact lingered, both in the air and in the hearts of the people. The once turbulent sea was now calm, its surface smooth as glass. The winds had calmed, and the sky, though still filled with lingering clouds, no longer seemed threatening. It was as if the kingdom itself was taking a collective breath, ready to rebuild after the storm's destruction. Prince Baku stood at the castle's highest tower, his gaze sweeping across the land he had sworn to protect. The earth beneath his feet felt alive, pulsing with energy, as if it were reaffirming its connection to him. He had once been a prince seeking a bride, but now, with the curse broken and the kingdom freed from Zubri's grip, he had become something more. He was the protector of Valantra, the guardian of its heart. Mara stood beside him, her hand gently resting on his arm. She had been his strength throughout the battle, and now, with the storm over, they stood together in the light of a new dawn. It feels different now, Mara said softly, her eyes watching the horizon. Like the kingdom itself is, waking up. Baku nodded, his gaze unwavering. It is. Zubari's reign of fear is over. The people can breathe again, but we have work to do. We must rebuild trust, heal the land, and restore what was broken. Mara turned to him, her expression thoughtful. And what about Valantra's future? What will we do now that the storm is gone? Baku smiled, a spark of determination in his eyes. Now, we build. Together. I may be the prince, but I cannot do this alone. The people of Valantra are strong, and I believe they will rise alongside us. At that moment, the mermaid, who had taken on the form of a village girl, approached them. Her eyes, though human in appearance, still held the shimmer of the sea, and her presence seemed to carry the very essence of the ocean. She had become a symbol of the kingdom's restoration, a reminder that the forces of nature could not be controlled, only respected. Baku turned to her, gratitude in his voice. Thank you, for everything. You saved not only the kingdom but my heart as well. The mermaid smiled, a serene and knowing smile. I did what was necessary. The earth is a living being, and you, Baku, have proven yourself worthy of its strength. But remember, the balance is delicate. It must be protected always. Baku nodded. I will protect it. I promise. The mermaid's gaze softened, and she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You have the heart of a true leader, Prince Baku. Do not forget that. You are not alone in this journey. With those final words, she turned and began to walk away, her footsteps light as if she were already merging with the earth itself. Baku watched her go, feeling the weight of her words settle into his heart. She's right, you know, Mara said, breaking his reverie. You are a true leader. I've seen it in you. Baku turned to her, his expression softening. I couldn't have done it without you, Mara. You've stood by me, through the storm and beyond. I owe you everything. Mara smiled, her hand gently touching his. And I'll continue to stand by you. Together, we'll rebuild Valantra. As the two of them gazed out over the kingdom, a quiet resolve settled in Baku's chest. The storm was gone, and with it, the darkness that had threatened to consume Valantra. But the true test was just beginning. Zubari's influence may have been broken, but the people still needed to heal. The land still needed to be restored. And there were still secrets in Valantra, old mysteries that even the storm hadn't washed away. Days passed, and the kingdom of Valantra began its slow but steady recovery. The people, once afraid, now worked together to rebuild their homes and villages. The crops that had been damaged by the storm slowly began to sprout anew, and the sea, once a force of destruction, seemed to offer its bounty once more. Prince Baku had become a symbol of hope for the people, his strength and determination inspiring even the youngest children to dream of a better future. He made it his mission to visit the villages, speaking with the people and listening to their needs. His bond with the land had only deepened, and he could feel the pulse of Valantra beneath him wherever he went. The earth had accepted him as its protector, and he would not fail it. Mara had been by his side, guiding him with wisdom and grace. She had become a trusted advisor, her knowledge of both the people and the land invaluable as they worked to rebuild the kingdom. The mermaid, though no longer in her true form, still lingered in the kingdom, watching over them from afar. Baku knew that her influence would remain, a quiet force that would always be there, should the kingdom need her again. One evening, as Baku and Mara sat together in the castle's courtyard, the air thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant hum of crickets, Mara spoke. Baku, she began, her voice soft. There is something I need to tell you. Something I've learned from the people of Valantra. Baku turned to her, his brow furrowed in curiosity. What is it? Mara hesitated for a moment before continuing. The storm, the curse, it wasn't just Zubari who caused it. There are whispers, ancient whispers that speak of a greater force. Something older than the gods, older than the earth itself. It said that the balance of the land was disrupted long before Zubari came into power. Baku's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Are you saying that this storm, this chaos, was destined to happen? Mara nodded slowly. I'm not sure, but there are legends, stories passed down from generation to generation, that speak of a time when the earth itself would cry out. A time when the kingdom of Volantra would face a darkness so great, it would require the blood of the purest hearts to restore the balance. Baku sat back, his mind racing. But that's impossible. We stopped Zuburi. We broke the curse. The storm is gone. Yes, but what if the storm was only the beginning? Mara's voice was filled with quiet concern. What if there is something else, something deeper that we still don't understand? Baku felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He had thought the battle was over. He had thought the kingdom was safe. But Mara's words lingered in the air, and he knew, deep down, that the storm's passing might have only been the prelude to something even darker. He stood up, the weight of the future pressing heavily upon him. We must learn more. Whatever this darkness is, we cannot face it unprepared. Mara nodded, her expression serious. I will help you, Baku. We will uncover the truth together. As Baku looked out over the land of Volantra, he knew that his journey was far from over. The storm had passed, but its echoes still reverberated through the kingdom. And in the shadows, something ancient and powerful stirred, waiting for the right moment to strike. The true battle for Volantra's future had only just begun. Volantra had begun to heal, but the land was still haunted by the ancient whispers Mara had spoken of. Prince Baku, alongside Mara and their trusted allies, had spent the days that followed unraveling every legend, every story that could shed light on the ominous future they faced. The people, too, had felt the tension, and despite the calm, a sense of unease hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. But Prince Baku was determined. With the love and support of Mara by his side, he had faced down the curse and Zuburi's forces. He would face this new threat too, no matter what it took. One evening, as the golden light of the setting sun dipped below the horizon, Baku stood once more on the castle's highest tower. The sea shimmered in the distance, calm but vast, an endless stretch of water that seemed to hold untold secrets. Mara joined him, her presence like a steady anchor in the whirlwind of thoughts that circled in his mind. Mara, Baku said quietly, his voice full of resolve, you were right. This land holds more than we ever understood. But together, we will uncover its secrets and protect it. Mara smiled gently, her hand resting on his arm. Together, always. But you must remember, Baku, that this fight isn't just about the kingdom or the curse. It's about the balance of the land itself. The very heart of Volantra is at stake. I know, Baku replied, but we have something Zuburi never had. The truth. And the love of our people. Suddenly, the wind picked up, and the sky darkened as if in response to his words. The sea churned, and a wave of dread swept over the kingdom. A deep, rumbling voice echoed through the air, its tone dark and ancient. You think you can restore the balance? The darkness that lies beneath is eternal. Volantra will fall, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Baku's heart raced, and he instinctively stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Who are you? He called out, his voice steady but filled with purpose. Show yourself. From the sea emerged a colossal figure, dark and shadowy, like the depths of the ocean itself had come alive. The figure was ancient, its form shifting and changing, an embodiment of darkness that seemed to stretch far beyond the visible horizon. It was the ancient force that had been warned of in the legends, the one that had been sleeping beneath the waves, waiting for the moment to rise again. I am the one who controls the storm, the figure boomed. I am the shadow that lies in the heart of Volantra's past. I will not be bound by the wishes of mere mortals. You cannot defeat me. But Baku did not falter. He knew that this battle was not one of strength alone but of will. The kingdom had already faced storms, curses, and darkness. But it had never faced a challenge like this, an ancient power that sought to undo everything they had fought for. With unwavering resolve, Baku stepped forward once more. I have seen the strength of this kingdom. I have felt the love and courage of its people. We will not be ruled by fear. Volantra is stronger than you think. Mara, standing by his side, spoke softly but firmly. You may be old, but even the oldest storms must come to an end. The land will not bow to you. We stand united, and together, we are stronger than your darkness. The dark figure laughed, its voice like 1,000 storms rolling across the sea. You think you can defeat me with words? Very well, then. Let's see if your unity can withstand the fury of the ocean. The waves around them began to rise, crashing against the shore with impossible force. The winds howled, and the skies darkened, as if the heavens themselves had joined in the attack. But Baku and Mara stood tall, their bond unbreakable. They were not just fighting for themselves but for the people of Volantra, for the future of their kingdom. In that moment, something incredible happened. The land beneath them began to glow, its heartbeat pulsing in rhythm with Baku's. The earth responded to his will, to the love he had for it, and for the people who had supported him. The power of Volantra's heart surged through him, and with a single, powerful command, the earth shook. The darkness that had risen from the sea faltered, its form wavering like a shadow in the light. The storm began to dissipate, the winds calming, the waves retreating. The sky cleared, and the sun broke through the clouds, casting its light over the kingdom. The ancient figure let out a final, anguished roar before dissolving into the air, as if the storm had never existed at all. Baku stood, panting, his heart racing. The kingdom had been saved once more, but this victory was different. It wasn't just about defeating a foe, it was about understanding the land, listening to its heart, and respecting its power. The storm was gone, and the kingdom had been restored. Mara looked up at him, her eyes filled with pride and love. You did it, Baku. You saved Volantra. Baku smiled, his eyes shining. We did it. Together. The days that followed were filled with celebration and joy. The people of Volantra rejoiced, their hearts lifted by the victory and the promise of a brighter future. The storm had come and gone, but the kingdom was stronger than ever. Prince Baku, now the true ruler of Volantra, had earned the love and respect of his people. He and Mara stood together as partners, guiding the kingdom toward a new era. And though the shadow of the storm had passed, they knew that the heart of Volantra would always be its greatest strength. As Baku and Mara walked through the streets of the village, hand in hand, the people cheered, their voices filled with gratitude. The future was bright, and the land was at peace. And so, the story of Volantra came to an end, at least for now. The curse was broken, the darkness defeated, and the kingdom was reborn. The people of Volantra had learned that no storm, no matter how great, could break their spirit. Thank you for watching this tale of courage, unity, and love. If you enjoyed the story of Prince Baku and Mara's journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exciting adventures. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for the next story, and remember, together, we are stronger than any storm.